hear about? They're the ones telling you, they got the cameras and they show you their perspective. What you don't get is the other side of the story. You're going to get the other side of the story from a school like HBU, praise the Lord, right? You're not going to hear about the gospel of Jesus Christ from, say, University of Texas, Austin. In fact, now I know Rob Coons is there, and he's a great Christian scholar, and I mean a great Christian scholar. And I'm not saying there are no Christians at these schools, because yeah, there are some. Overwhelmingly, not only are there non-Christians there, overwhelmingly the schools are run by Marxists, okay? And so when you go into these schools and you learn under them, you think you're learning some kind of literature, you're learning philosophy, you're learning ethics, and what you end up learning is Marxist ideology, okay? And then they keep out professors who do not agree with them. And this is study after study has shown this to be true, where they go and they have interviews, and then they give, they survey professors, and they're anonymous, and they say, would you hire somebody who's of a religious bent, or would you hire somebody if they were of a conservative nature? And of course, these are hiring committees, okay? People, like I would stand on a hiring committee. So that's why they talk to professors, because they're on a hiring committee. Overwhelmingly, they openly say, no, I would oppose that openly. And so you go, well, there you go. When we talk about diversity exists when it comes to color. Diversity is present when it comes to sexual preference, when it comes to gender, like women and men, when it comes to other, I said race, I guess. But what it does not include is ideological differences. They don't like ideological diversity. They want ideological homogeneity, which is sameness. They do not like people challenging their worldviews. Okay, and so why is that? Now, this is why I tell you, look, you go to one of those classes, you start challenging some kind of person on some kind of critical race theory or something, you're gonna get not fired, but if you work there, you're gonna get fired. But if you challenge him as a student, probably good chance you're gonna get failed. Okay, I knew a guy, he took of all classes, a women's studies class. I don't know why I do that, but he took it, and the woman said, teaching it said, if you disagree with me at all, I will fail you. Okay, you've already got one strike against you because you're a man. Okay, and so I had a professor at Cal State Northridge when I was in some education, I use the term lightly, program. He was just, he was not teaching us, it was supposed to be a class on pedagogy, and pedagogy is how to teach. What he didn't teach was pedagogy, and what he did teach was how bad white Christian males were, the whole semester, okay? Now, I'm a white Christian male, and am I supposed to put on a paper how bad white Christian males are? I'm not gonna do it. As for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. I transferred out of the class, but, Dr. Nava, basically made it clear, if you disagree with what I'm teaching, you're not gonna pass. Now, I don't think that's a good way to do it. I think the good way to do it is like in a class like this, where your tests are pretty objective. You're not called to agree with me on the test, except for Plato taught Socrates, which is false, right? True, false statement. Right? Socrates taught Plato. That's pretty uncontroversial. But in our discussions, I certainly invite y'all to disagree, because that's how, like in a wrestling match, real wrestling, not the WWE. If you're a wrestler, you get better by doing what? Wrestling. In football, I'm not going to get better at football by watching the NFL every weekend, am I? No, I got to play the game, right? You got to run the drills, you got to play the game. And so that's where we, in philosophy class, if we disagree, kind of say, well, what about this? And we ask each other questions. And, your ability to disagree allows you to learn how to think about what, these things are, these issues, whatever they may be. And so that's why I say, listen, when you listen to Thomas Sowell, you get a different view than what you've been taught, K through 12, through your peers, I don't agree with Tom Sowell on some things. He doesn't believe in God. I don't think he believes in God. I want him to believe in God, but he doesn't. So I know that whole, when I was talking on Monday about our basic philosophical views will have such a radical impact on our views later on in life, okay? So thank God I like Thomas Sowell for some things, but I want him to believe in God. I want him to have hope. That sucks to live without hope, doesn't it? Anyway, that brings us to where we were last week. And so last week, by last week I mean on Monday, today's Wednesday. You guys weren't here because we flip-flopped students. Noah was here, so he could, I started off by having you guys write down something. I repeated it 100 times. H.L. Mencken said, "What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires." Okay? What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. If I'm correct, I put the video up. How many of you watched it? None of you. So you were unaware of what I taught the other day. And it's
that was the metaphysics one, right?
Yes. Did you get it?
Yeah, I did.
All right. See, there we go. And so this sounds familiar, right? What is today a matter of academic speculation begins tomorrow to move armies and pull down empires. It is so important that you watch the videos, folks, because I build off them. You wouldn't do this in a math class, would you? Because if you skip one step, you're done. You know nothing. You are stuck at the place where you left off. Okay? Now we've moved away from Augustine, a historical figure, back into subject matter. And in metaphysics, we study the world. It carves up the world at the joints. By the world, we don't mean Atlas's map of Earth. What we mean is everything that exists. We mean everything that exists. And you go, well, yeah, this universe, and isn't that physics? No. Physics makes the assumption that all that exists is physical matter. Okay? Is there more to the world than mere physical stuff, parts and wholes? If you believe that everything that exists is nothing more than physical parts and wholes, then you're going to have to reduce everything to a physical whole, from a whole to its parts. Let's take morality, because that's where this all goes, right? That's where I'm going to head. Religious claims should, if God exists, God can't exist if everything is physical, right? Because God is not physical. If God is not physical and everything that exists is physical, then God cannot exist. Those who believe that the world is nothing more than physical cannot believe in God. You understand? As long as what they mean by the world is everything that exists. Now, if all they say is we believe the earth is nothing more than physical, well, yeah, I believe the earth is physical. But that's a narrow belief. I'm talking the broad metaphysical belief that the world is everything beyond just the physical world. We're talking everything. So if you deny that non-physical reality exists, then you say everything that must exist is physical. Let's take the morality of murder. Let's take evil. What would evil be on a physicalistic account? It would have to be some physical thing. It would have to be tangible, have weight, size, matter. You would have to be able to observe it under a microscope to some degree, and it would break down into cells, into molecules, and then finally into atoms, and then from atoms into its atoms parts, and whatever those parts may be broken up into, if they are. Is morality nothing more than atoms? That would be odd, wouldn't it? Now we're going to keep going on this. I'm going to keep pushing this line of thought. I'll keep writing this stuff down as long as I need to. Your notes will end up all looking like this. So metaphysics. First of all, if you remember in philosophy, we had epistemology, studies ethics, metaphysics studies the world, and ethics studies morality. In metaphysics, I gave you 3 options the other day. I gave you the naturalist. Noah, what is a naturalist? I just said it. Naturalists or physicalists believe that everything that exists in the world is physical. They deny that non-physical reality exists. They deny that non-physical reality exists. On the opposite end of the spectrum is idealists, those who believe that everything that exists are ideas, that is non-physical things. There is no physical reality. Some of you say that is counterintuitive. After all, you experience physical reality, do you not? You think you do, right? Finally, you have the realists. Metaphysical realism is not identical to epistemological realism. Metaphysical realism believes that the world is made up of both physical and non-physical things. Realists believe that the world is made up of both physical and non-physical things. An epistemological realist believes that the external world exists independent of the mind, if you recall. Remember epistemology? That it's not all in your mind. However, they are connected. Let's not suggest I'm a metaphysical realist and I'm an epistemological realist. Okay? To be a phenomenalist, epistemologically speaking, a philosophical phenomenalist, I cannot be a realist because the phenomenalist is going to suggest that everything is in your mind, which is definitely in line with idealism. So they're similar. They can go along, okay? So this is everything turns out to be non-physical. Everything is physical. And there are some things that are physical and some things that are not physical. All right? If you go to a science class, K through 12, most of the time, they presuppose one of 2 things, either methodological naturalism or philosophical naturalism. Methodological naturalism suggests that it's kind of an epistemological approach that says we are only allowed to use a method that uses physical answers, that really just deals with physical things and can only allow physical conclusions, conclusions that are actually suggesting physical causation or results, okay? You're not going to sit there and draw conclusions that God did it. Okay, methodological natural, all right? Now there are some people, Baylor University, from where I got my PhD, there were some people there trying to get Congress to make it a law that all colleges have to teach methodological naturalism, and you cannot teach anything other than that in a science class. You cannot legislate knowledge, people. That was ridiculous. That's saying we are trying to control your thought by controlling what you are allowed to conclude. But nonetheless, methodological naturalism has to do with the method. Philosophical naturalism suggests there should be no conclusions of non-physical things because, in fact, there are no non-physical things. Okay? One has to do with just a method. One just is the statement that there absolutely are no non-physical things. Now, the other day I gave you examples of physical, non-physical things. Did I not? Noah? Given that you're my start witness who was there the other day, I did give you some examples, correct?
Yeah.
What was one of them? Called the universal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, universals are multiply exemplifiable abstract entities. Multiply exemplifiable abstract entities. What's an abstract entity? Look at me. An abstract entity is a non-physical thing. Pretty simple, okay? Is color a physical thing? Now, some people would argue it is, because if you're a naturalist, you believe everything is physical, and if you believe colors exist, you believe everything is physical, then you must believe that color is physical, right?
Yeah.
You must. Can you give me some blue?
No, not right now.
You got some blue on the desk there. Look down at your desk, look at the paper. What's on the paper?
Blue ink.
And on top of that blue ink,
A blue pen.
a blue pen. So it seems to me that there's some blue in front of you. Can you give me the blue? I don't want the pen. You can keep the pen, I just want the blue.
I mean, like,
Uh-huh.
I
Now,
feel
the
like-
other day we did discuss that blue could be in more than one place at one time, correct?
Correct.
And we did discuss whether or not physical things can be in more than one place at a time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is it not true that we determined that colors cannot be, that colors can be in more than one place at a time?
That's true.
It is true that colors could be in more than one place at a time? Yes, okay. Is it not true that desks, physical hard desks, that desk per se, cannot be in more than one place at a time?
Yeah, that's not true.
Okay, so that desk cannot be in more than one place at a time, but blueness can.
Yep.
Is that desk blue?
Yes.
So the desk is blue and blue can be in more than one place at a time, but the desk cannot. So there's something, the blue is different than the desk, is it not?
Yeah.
Okay, and so the blue itself seems to be something, an entity that can be in more than one place at a time. We can abstract the blue from the desk. Make sense? Blue, okay. How about quantities? The quantity of oneness. Can the quantity of oneness be in more than one place at a time? Can I go to the math department and find one? I hope so, because I got to carry it, right? Carry the one. As I talk about oneness in here, are they going to come in here and get mad at me because I'm using the one that they need? No, because one could be in more than one place at a time. It's a universal, right? The quantity of 3 could be in more than one place at a time. Quantities are quantities, physical things. Can I look under a microscope and see the I can observe the quantity of 1. Okay? I can observe a pea, like, the kind you eat that I don't. Okay? Because I don't like peas. Like I said, there's 1 pea right there. And I can look at that 1 pea. Right? Can I take the oneness from it? Well, that 1 pea could be there, but the 1 can be somewhere else too. Okay? That pea can't, but oneness can.
Well, you can add another P and it'll be 2.
Then I have 2ness, right? Yes, now the quantity has changed.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
to
took
2.
away the 1.
Okay, right. So that's an interesting thing, okay? Because the P didn't change, but the quantity did.
Yeah.
Interesting, right?
That's interesting.
You could get a P that becomes wrinkled, too. Is it the same P?
No, it's not.
It's a different P?
Yeah.
So now that I'm a little more wrinkled than I was when I was your age, I'm not the same person?
Nope.
Now, from a physicalistic standpoint, they have to say that, okay? And we can discuss that. So let's go say I commit a crime. And then I start changing myself. I go get a tattoo on my face, shave my head, put on a wig. Am I different now?
You're not.
I mean, what's the difference between that and wrinkles?
Mhm.
Maybe I just wait a while, gain some more wrinkles, Noah. Am I a different person then? And if I'm a different person then, and then they try to put me on trial, I go, no, that wasn't me. Noah says so. Right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay, so we're going to discuss that more. Change through time. It's sameness through change, right? Point being, is there non-physical things that exist, right? What about humanity? You're a human, right?
Right.
I think we got a few of you in here. Are you the same as Noah?
No, we're both humans. Yeah.
You're both human, but you're not the same human.
Right.
So there's something the same about you.
Right.
That's interesting, but it's located at different places,
Right.
different times. I'm older than you. I existed before you, right? Hopefully you'll exist after me, but I plan to live a long time. Okay?
Me too.
Yeah, 120. That's my goal. Okay? My dad made 94, okay? All right? I tell him, don't unplug me. I'm going for a record, you know? Anyway. We both share humanity. What is humanity? Is it a physical thing? You go, well, it's DNA. Well, I don't have your DNA. We don't share the same DNA. My DNA is located right here. Yours is right over there. We don't have the same DNA. Why are we calling the two different things human? What is it about the two sets? You go, they have the same shape or whatever, same characters, properties we call them, okay, attributes, okay? Well, then I go, well, what are these attributes that are the same? Because if everything is physical, my attributes have to be unique to me. That's called sui generis or sui generis. It's like suicide, self-killing. Sui just means, self, or same. Well, homo same, self. And so sui generis is that it's in its own genera, okay? That it's unique. Well, if it's unique, then we're not sharing the same thing, right? So we're not both humans. And then if we're not both humans, why do we call each other humans if we're not the same species? Does that make sense to you? So something has to be multiply exemplifiable. We'll talk more about even thoughts. Do you have a thought in your head? Is your thought physical? Your thoughts are not physical. Does anybody have? A lot of people go, yeah, thoughts are nothing more than chemical reactions in your brain. Right? Are they? Think of an elephant. Do you have an elephant shape in your brain? No, you don't. Do you have an elephant size? And you think of a really big elephant. Did your head get bigger? No. The thought is of a big elephant, but the thought is not actually physical. Think of a pink elephant. Could we look in your brain and find a pink elephant? No, we could not. We'll talk more about this as time goes on. This is not concluding the class. I realized I brought my wrong lecture notes, which it really doesn't matter because I've had them memorized for years. So, when we talk about realism, we're defending the proposition. A proposition is a statement that's either true or false, that there is non-physical reality, okay? In ontology, we talk about existence questions. It's part of metaphysics, the discussion of existence, otherwise known as ontology. We talked about this the other day. And there are certain existence statements, okay? There's a question we could ask, what does it mean to exist at all? What does it mean to exist at all? I'm going to give you the answer after I ask you a question. Can anybody tell me what it means to exist? If you say God exists, or if you say God does not exist, you're using the word exist. I like to use that proposition because God exists as a proposition, because we live in a world where most or many just do not believe in God anymore. In fact, they believe God doesn't exist, and if you go to the normal colleges down the road, they'll probably help you assume that God doesn't exist, okay? They'll usually say stuff like there's no proof. Well, we could talk more about that, but I think we dealt with that a little bit in when we talked about religious epistemology, right? And that was barely scratching the surface, people, I promise you. But if we take that proposition, God exists, we first must, in any discussion, define our terms. Remember, I like to define my terms. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by the word exist? Can somebody tell me? You are in college.
Living.
Living. So rocks don't exist. After all, they're not living.
Like take up space.
Take up space. Do your thoughts take up space? Does the number 3 take up space? Does the proposition A is taller, if A is identical to B and B is identical to C, then A is identical to C. Does that take up space? Does it exist?
Yes.
Does space take up space? The answer is yes, because it's extended.
Really something that can have an
Do things that, well, let's go backwards here. Here, look at me. Are things that are living, do they exist?
Yes.
Okay, good. Noah, do things that take up space, do they exist?
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's cool. So we know we have examples of things that exist, right? Okay, what is it about them that makes them exist? That we say, oh, okay, we could use that as a definition. to define our definendum, the thing being defined, you know, we can define the term existence. What does it mean? It may have that in common, something in common. Hey there, back in the cheap seats. Do you have any idea of what the word existence means? No? Have you ever used the word exist? You have. Well, tell me about it. We take it for granted, don't we? It's kind of like we know it when we see it, right? I know this thing exists because I see it, right? But then there's certain assumptions that if I don't see it, touch, taste, smell, or hear it, I must not be able to say it exists, correct? That's what a lot of people think. It's not true. First of all, a thought exists, but you just can't see, touch, taste, or smell it, can you? Do you think my thoughts exist? I hope so, okay? But you can't see them, can you? Can't touch them, taste them, smell them, hear them. No, you hear my voice, which should be a result of that, right? Okay, let me break. Yeah, go ahead, Noah.
Something that you believe in?
That could be an example of your belief exists. Just because you believe it doesn't mean it exists. I believed there was something in my closet as a little boy. It wasn't there. Okay? Didn't exist. Okay? I believed in love, right? That a young lady loved me. I was wrong. Her love did not exist, at least not for me. Okay? She broke my heart, my 13-year-old heart. I'm joking at it. But it happens, right?
Yeah.
So just because you believe it, it doesn't mean it exists. And it could actually exist and you could deny it, right? Doctor tells you got cancer, like, go into denial. No, I don't. I'm sorry, the cancer doesn't care if you believe it, right? You see, facts don't matter if you believe in them or not. Facts are facts, all right? And cancer kills whether you believe it does or not. God exists whether we believe God exists or not. God's existence isn't dependent upon our beliefs, okay? My thoughts are not dependent on what you believe about my thoughts, okay? We're talking about existence, and existence is not things that exist may be dependent, like we're dependent on the fact that we were created, that somehow we came into existence, right? We are here now. But the things we recognize and discover that exist, they're not dependent on our belief in them, okay? The trees in the forest that exist independent of our beliefs, okay? You know, the whole, if a tree falls in the forest, you know, and they more philosophically deep. No, I may not, it may have been that one time the tree didn't make any sound waves, okay? Yeah, big deal. But I think we could safely say it made a sound, or it made sound waves, and if I were there, I would have heard it, okay? It didn't not make a sound just because I wasn't there. See, trees exist, stuff exists, whether or not I believe it, okay? Now, I'm just trying to define existence, and I'm going to give you an existence definition. As J.P. Moreland said, existence, for something to exist, it must exemplify one or more properties. For something to exist, it must exemplify one or more properties. For something to exist, it must exemplify one or more properties. Right? So, I gave an example of space, like outer space, right? Does outer space exist? Yeah. What property does space exemplify? Extension, right? Space is extended. We could actually travel through it. There's a vacuum in space, right? There's some properties there. Darkness is actually, if you go on outer space, and I'm not just talking extension, space is extension, but if we go into outer space, like, you know, off our planet, what we call space, and I'm not just, you know, there's darkness out there, right? And that's a property. So some people would say it's a lack of properties. I don't know about that, because I perceive darkness, right? And if I can perceive it, it's something, right? Seems to me, if you were completely blind, you would perceive neither darkness nor light, okay? Like when I try to look through the back of my head, I'm not seeing darkness. I'm just not seeing. Oh, y'all are trying to see through the back of your heads. Okay, does that help? It's a very important thing because now we got existence statements about your own existence. So let's give you some statements. I think there are 5 if I'm going to recall correctly. Let's start with number 1. I have always existed. I have always existed. And, or but. Let's see, should I go but? Let's go with and. No, let's go with but. But I will cease to exist. I have always existed, but I will cease to exist. That's one option. 2. I have always existed. And I will exist forever. I have always existed and I will exist forever. 3. I have come into being but I will pass away or cease to exist. You could put in parentheses cease to exist to make sure that passing away is not confused with physical dying and the separation of the body and the soul yet, okay? We're talking about your entirety of existence, okay? Finally, I have come into existence and will never pass away or never cease to exist. Are there any other options that you could come up with?
Say that last one again.
Yeah, I have come into existence and I will never cease to exist or never pass away. Now, by pass away, if you mean dying physically, well, then I'm pretty optimistic, okay? But, you know, we mean cessation of existence. Now, to think, this is a great question. Not a single one of you do not have a play. Is there anybody out there that has a different belief than one of these 4? Is there another option? The answer is no, as far as I can tell, but nobody's given me one. And if you can give me one, I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, it's okay. So, we have never come into, we've always existed, and we'll pass away or not pass away. Or we have come into existence, and will go out of existence, or not go out of existence. Those are our 4 options. If you are, it's like the Buddhists. The Buddhists and the Hindus believe in reincarnation. Plato believed in reincarnation, right? That you just keep going in a circle. You have come from the past. When you were created, well, if we have always existed, you don't need to be created. You always existed, and we've just been going ad infinitum. And I've told you about the belief, my thought, that you cannot cross an actual infinite. Okay? I don't know if you remember that. If you don't, it's probably because you weren't in the class. It was recorded, and you need to go back to that. Okay? We wouldn't get here. But beyond that, you know, you keep going, and here we are, and we'll keep going on either into eternity or we will cease to exist. The Hindus and, say, Buddha, who believe that, Siddhartha Gautama, believe that our goal is to get rid of bad karma. We do that by ridding ourselves of all desire. right? And eventually we escape the cycle of death and rebirth. That's the goal of Buddhism, okay? Is to escape the cycle of death and rebirth and achieve nirvana. Nirvana is non-existence. The goal is to cease to exist, because living life is pain, according to Gautama. Very cynical. Allegedly, as the story goes, he was a prince, kept basically, in the four walls of the palace, gets out, and after he lived a charmed life, all spoiled and all, he goes out and sees that people are suffering and dying and hurting, and he goes, we got to escape this. And he decides the goal in life is to escape pain and the cycle of death and rebirth. I like life, and it is painful, but I like it. I'm not saying I like pain. I think I like life. I want to keep it. Okay? I'm not. But his goal, so the goal is eternal death in that regard. So they would believe that you have been non-created, you have always existed, but you will cease to exist. Okay? That's the goal. One idea is that you always existed, will continue to exist. That's God. Okay? We're not God. I didn't always exist as far as I know. Okay? So I don't have any evidence to suggest that I am God. Or at least have that divine aseity. Aseity is self-existence. Okay? We need to talk about that too eventually. But, moving on. The next one is that I have come into existence. That is, maybe I was just born in a particular year. I will live, I will die, and when I die physically, I die permanently. And that is, that's also, there are some religious views that hold that, Some Jews believe that, that your soul is basically part of your body, that when you die, you cease to exist. It doesn't mean God doesn't exist. It just means that your life is temporary. You don't believe, the Sadducees in Scripture did not believe in the resurrection. Okay, the Pharisees believed in the resurrection. Jesus was in line with the Pharisaical teaching on that the resurrection did and will occur, that when, as Paul the Apostle says, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, showing that you are not integrated with your body in such a way that when your body dies, you die. Okay? So, but most of the time, it is atheists that believe this. That when the body dies, you die, you are done. And then finally, certain theistic groups such as Jews, Christians, and Muslims believe that when you die, that you came into existence at one point, you didn't exist prior to your birth, that you come into existence, and then after your body is destroyed, which it most inevitably will be either through disease or some accident, or just old age and it just falls apart and just stops working, right? Then your body is separated from your soul, and your soul goes and lives on, whether it be in, as Christian scripture says, to be judged, to live once and then to be judged. And your judgment is whether or not, really, guys, whether or not you know Jesus or not. That's what New Testament scripture says. Okay, it has to do with the redemption. That you have given your, basically, given your sin over to Jesus, let him die for you, and you'll enter into fellowship with God. Now, scripture actually just really, when it comes down to it, do you want to be with God or not? Okay, I know that sounds pretty bad, but I also want to remind you guys, too, not to be controversial, but you got to remember, this is what Christians teach. You are at a Christian school. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be a Christian to go here. It just means you have to be a Christian to teach here. And it also means I have to give you the gospel every semester, which I'm more than happy to do. It is a philosophy class, after all. And Jesus is, if nothing else, a philosopher. And if everything else, he's the Son of God. Okay? And that's what he taught. And that last view, I have come into existence and will live forever, is consistent with Christianity, it is consistent with Judaism, and it is consistent with Islam. Okay? So, those are our options. All of you fall on one of those options. So if you're a Jewish person and you believe that there is a resurrection and an afterlife, then you fall on there where I fall on there. If you're a Christian, then you fall on there too. Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, you fall on there. If you are a Muslim, you fall on there in the same place I do. If you're a Buddhist, you fall on there somewhere else. You believe that you always exist and will cease to exist. If you're an atheist, you believe you came into existence and you will cease to exist. There's nothing controversial about that. Those are our options. That's our menu. Thoughts? I want to hear them. About anything. The White Sox. Since you're wearing a hat with the White Sox. What are you thinking about? You're not thinking about anything? I just gave you some very deep things to think about. Are they deep? Cool? Interesting? Do you ever think about it that way? Yeah, but have you ever thought about it that way? Sometimes. Does it worry you? Has it kept you up at night? Asking yourself, is this all there is? Because if you're a Christian and Jesus has promised great things, right? Then this is the worst it's going to get, earth. If you're an atheist, you don't believe in Jesus, this is the best it's going to get. Have you thought of that? That's why our hope, that's why we call it hope. Because if we had arrived, we don't need hope. What you think in the back? Any thoughts? Is it pretty interesting to you stuff? They ever present this stuff in junior high, high school? Did you go to any other college before this? Anybody else go to any other college before this? You did? Where'd you go?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Fun school?
Yeah.
It's a party school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah, it is. Fun people? Of course, it's a party school. You can't have a party school without fun people, right? Did your professors talk like this? What did they talk like? What classes did you take?
I took a bunch of prereqs because I was not.
Good. Prereqs are where they're going to get you. So history.
Yeah. My history was online, so I didn't ever go to class there.
Okay, so you actually never went to so okay. English.
I didn't have English class.
Did you have what other class you had?
I had like a intro to sports management.
Yeah, that guy is free. Yeah, I got to deal with it there.
And then I had a math class that was in person too.
Math class. Okay, that's kind
I
of.
did.
Where'd you
I
get?
was at University of Memphis before this. I took food and history.
Food and history.
Yeah.
Same class.
Yeah, same.
Oh, that sounds like a cool class.
Yeah, it was, and we ate food and
Yeah, I like eating food.
composition.
Did you like old food
Yeah,
from
we-
history?
Yeah.
I'm joking. Like
No,
you're
we really
like
did.
1,000-year-old cake.
They would talk.
No, I'm just picking on
I'm trying
it.
to think what else I had. English.
English.
Yeah.
English is where they get you, man. English is where there's a great video I want you guys to watch called C.S. Lewis. It's called C.S. Lewis Doodle. It comes from the book The Abolition of Man, and it's the first chapter called Men Without Chests. But it talks about an English teacher basically telling people about morality and stuff. And English is where you get a bunch of people, amateur, professional grammarians doing amateur philosophy. And so I want you to watch it. I know we're out of time, right? We're about there. But the point I'm trying to make is a lot of these really cool, deep thoughts you're not going to get at a lot of other schools, okay? Yeah, they're going to teach you some, Plato, Aristotle, stuff like that. They'll skip over all this. But these are some great, deep questions that you need to take seriously. There are 4 options, all right? And one of them's true. One of them is true, okay? So that'll let you go. Go watch the last video. Go watch Monday's video, guys. After all, you do get tested over it. Don't just go look for test answers, okay?